Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the award winning recovery podcast, Get in the Herd, brought to you by the McShin Foundation. I am Nathan Mitchell, I'm your host, and today we have in with us a volunteer, a facilitator, a group facilitator, a person in long term recovery. And probably a bunch of other things. But the thing that I noticed the most about the person we have in with us today is that this guy's always on his bike. And just before the show, he was combing his hair, his beard hair, because he'd just been out on that. So, Steve, my friend, welcome to Get in the Herd. It's great to have you here. What's going on?
Life.
Life,
Yes. Dealing with life one day at a time.
one day at a time.
Yeah. Keeping myself active. My program in front of me.
Yeah.
We're looking for those newcomers.
Yeah. Well, so every week you come here to the McShin Foundation and you do a group. It's the 1045 group on Tuesdays, correct?
Right. The
Yep.
people in the intense program are required to be there. And then there's other people that show up and we carry the message the best we can.
What do your groups usually do? What do you usually work with in your group?
So, what I've found in my experience has been that my program, the way I carry the message, is usually based on who is in the meeting. Is it a detox meeting, a recovery meeting, or an open meeting where you have more people with experience? So, this being an early first 30-day type meeting, like we do an introduction with a clean date because a lot of people don't think about their clean date, but I kind of push that mode of what is your clean date? That is a special day. You need to remember that day. You need to save it, preserve it, and don't change it.
Yeah.
So we start with that, an introduction with your clean date and what may be on your mind today. Are you struggling with something? Is there a question? Bring it up, and then we do go around, and everybody does that, and then I do the just for today reading to give us something to kind of have as a topic as needed, but also I try to pick up on things people might have said and try to inspire them to work through it,
Yeah.
give them some thoughts on it.
So your group is essentially sort of an introduction to Narcotics Anonymous. Is that
Yeah,
is that
yes,
fair?
yes.
And as an organization, we support multiple pathways,
Hmm.
and there are a lot of people in this building who do work a 12-step. Most people, I think, in this building work a 12-step program, and many, if not most, certainly work Narcotics Anonymous.
Right. And
Yeah,
when I came around originally here and asked if they needed a volunteer, if there was someplace I could be useful, they said they needed somebody to cover the 10:45 Tuesday morning NA meeting. And I asked, okay, so how do you want me to do it? And they said, however you want to do it. And they gave me free reign. And I'm old school, NA kind of hardcore recovery. I don't sugarcoat much.
yeah,
And I will kind of call people on their BS a little bit, but in a way that's inspirational, not demeaning,
mm,
which is something that takes a little practice. Because, you can get some people don't take things as different people take things different ways. So I try to get the get the brains working in a manner, where they understand me and what I'm trying to do. Because the whole thought process is you're in your first 28 days here. This is when you need to get those basic foundation mode actions started. If you don't get your spiritual connection, if you don't start doing your literature, if you don't build a network and try to find a sponsor and get that going, the odds aren't too good that you're going to do it after that first 28 days.
hmm,
So, building blocks, and we're like, as I said this morning in the meeting, you can't put the roof on if you haven't had a foundation to build walls to put a roof on. And, so that meeting is really about the beginning of the journey
yeah,
and trying to start some new habits. Starting new habits. Some people that come into recovery never had the structured home life.
Mm.
Mom, dad, dinner at 6. We're all going to do this on Sunday. All the bills are paid and they got transportation, whatever. Some people never had that kind of structure in their life ever. So now we're trying to get them to have structure,
Yeah.
which is fundamental to recovery. Um, so just trying to help people understand the need um, to get on a routine of positivity.
Hmm.
I'm huge on positivity.
We were talking before the broadcast here, and we were talking about recovery time, clean date. I like what'd you say, January 6th, 2014.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was that a little over 8 years at this point.
Yeah,
Wow, they are slamming the door out there, aren't they?
inconsiderate.
Anyway, if you're listening or watching out there, there's some stuff going on in the background here. It's life on life's terms mean that sometimes we hear weird things in the background of the show. These mics are sensitive.
Yeah, we need to get one of those red recording light bulbs.
I
There you
agree
go.
with you, but that's just another thing to get ignored.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think we need to just actually surround the room with foam and soundproof it, but
Soundproof.
Egg cartons.
and curtains.
Yeah,
Curtains, soundproof. Boy, I just had an isolation fantasy there.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Start the dungeon.
fair. So,
That's
so
another show.
well, that's a very different show. But going into you've been in recovery now for 8 years, and so what is your journey? Tell us. What was life like before you got into recovery? Essentially the what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now for you.
My story goes back to a decent childhood with a working father and mom, 3 kids very early, and it was kind of tough. I was the only son and the first child, and my father did not know how to raise children.
Mm.
He came from a poor family, and I took a lot of abuse. It was mental, physical. My sisters also took the mental aspect mostly, and I never thought of it as anything, but it instilled fear. And as I became an early teen, I found the way to get past my fears was to I had to get a network per se of my peers, and the easiest way to fit in was alcohol, marijuana, and that was the early days. That's where it started. 12, 13 years old when we could get our hands on it, and just going from there and carried on through my life. With each year, it seemed like there was more and more and more. Um, I worked a lot. I had fun a lot, but drugs were a central part of everything I did.
Yeah.
And eventually, at age 49, I met my match. I picked up heroin. I
Wow.
had an old lady who was a heroin addict, and I forced her hand because I wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And against her will very much. I forced her hand, and it was on. As with any other drug I did, if I liked it, I went after it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And it took 5 years, and it whipped my ass. Literally, in 5 years, I did not want to live anymore. Um,
Wow.
I actually addressed that to my family in a manner that was totally awful. Um, because I told them I was done living. And I asked them, should I just disappear? It was cold. It was a
Yeah.
cold message, very hard. It hurt them. Their response was, would you try to do something? Would you try to get help? I'd never thought about it that way. I'd never looked at it that way. Get help?
Yeah. I didn't need help. You
No.
just needed to deal with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me was definitely the problem. Um, it certainly wasn't a good time anymore, like it started out. Um, so I said I would, and I made the effort, and I found my way into a program in Fairfax County called A New Beginning, and they recommended a 90-day in-house program, which I did. I was there 114 days, and I'm telling you, it saved my life.
So you kind of did your recovery at the beginning, just like you did your addiction. They said 90, you did 114.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and it took every day.
Yeah.
It was hard. I was not easy to get along with for a long time. I didn't fit. I
Yeah.
didn't fit.
How did you not fit?
It was a community. It was a
Yeah.
community of other people just like me, except, well, females, males, all ages, all different drugs I never even knew about doing. What's Adderall? What does Adderall do? I was basic, I felt like, but I knew I was sick,
Yeah.
right? I knew I was sick. And their program um, was well designed, and it pulled so much out of me. It let me get rid of so much baggage. I mean, God, I felt like I wrote books in there, and the meetings that came in and the counselors, every little aspect of it made a difference. But I had to be all in. And the one thing I knew was if I wasn't all in, I was going to end up out before I was ready, and then I'd be right back where I was.
Well, how long did it take you to feel a part of instead of identifying it? It sounds well. What I'm hearing from your story is that when you initially got to treatment, those 90 days, initially you were identifying out. It sounds like,
Hmm.
when you talked about Adderall, my little brain got all fired up, and I said I can tell you about Adderall because
Right.
that's my story.
Yeah.
Um,
And I wouldn't know until somebody, I didn't know until, even in the last few years, someone responded with they had relapsed on, hmm,
hmm,
yeah, something they got at the vape shop or 7-Eleven or something,
like CBD.
kratom.
Oh, Kratom.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell's kratom?
Yeah.
I've never heard of such thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but that's you know, when we were talking about the heroin that whipped my ass. I only overdosed one time, and it didn't even slow me down.
Yeah.
Um, but I was able to maintain some kind of a respect or a decent way of living through that somehow.
Yeah.
I wasn't robbing and stealing. I felt like I wasn't hurting my family. I was just doing my thing as we
Mm.
will.
We
But in
talk.
the end, I figured it out how much damage I was doing. Even though I kept myself away, I was doing a lot of damage. It was bad.
We talked about those yets before
Yeah.
the meeting earlier because with my part of the story there and certainly the robbing and the stealing and all that,
Hmm.
it's a lot of people's story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. There's certain things. My experiences were broad, but when I look back at the miracles of my story, that I survived. First of all, the many years of drunk driving as a youngster
Yeah.
and reckless drunk driving. I mean, crazy, reckless drunk driving, irresponsible as I could be. Surviving that, never hurting anybody, killing anybody along the way, never having done time.
Hmm.
Never, I mean, I was behind bars maybe 5 or 6 times in my life for a few hours. Never spent 24 hours. It wasn't because I had some big lawyers or something. I never got any major charges. And my consequence level was low.
Mm.
I always worked hard and had the money to do what I wanted to do. And of course, that was what I like to do, and it was. I mean, I raised a couple of daughters. I had a marriage and a couple of daughters. I ruined the marriage, um, and that kind of really unleashed the beast.
Mm.
again. It was tame for a while, but in the end, finding that program and being able to put all that behind me, starting, having the NA group feeling. That's what really let me invest in the reality of I can do this. Was going the NA way.
Yeah.
And although I was always a believer that a meeting is a meeting. It doesn't matter what meeting it is, even if you're going to church. It's a meeting of good souls,
Yeah.
of people who want to live. And so that's what I did, and that's what I've done. Um,
Well, it's about community, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Humanity. I'll take it a
Humanity.
level up. Yeah,
I
level up. I think that's one of the things that I find. I spoke about it this morning. One of the main things missing in society, not even just in the world of addiction, humanity.
Mm.
Where's the humanity?
What does humanity mean to you?
We're all the same people. Everybody. We should all have our souls and our hearts in the same manner,
Okay.
right? I don't have any reason not to be as kind to one person as I am to another. There's no difference.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can agree to disagree, but we can also do for each other and have a better world.
Okay. I like that.
You know, crossing um, different lines and borders of, whether it's addiction or not, whether it's racism or religion. It doesn't matter. We're all human beings.
Well, you talk about that 114 days. Is
Hmm.
that correct? What did you do after the 114 days? Where did you go?
Straight to an Oxford house.
Straight for an okay.
Yep, straight to an Oxford house. May 1st, 2014, I left. Um, I left and went to an Oxford house in Fairfax. I stayed there a few months. Interesting experiences, but it was all right. It was part of the growth, part of the learning. I experienced roommates who chose to go back out
Yeah.
and had to maintain my um, resistance to do the same thing. I pretty much lost all my cravings while I was in the rehab.
Yeah.
I didn't have cravings, and I knew if I were to use again, I'd probably be a dead man pretty quick. I mean, reality was death was imminent
Yeah.
to me.
How did you? So, one of the things I struggle with in recovery and building my community is because the rate of recurrence of use, the rate of relapse is so high.
Hmm.
And, I'm building my community and, I'm putting my faith, well, this is the wrong word. I'm putting my faith into a power greater than myself.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I guess for me a power greater than myself. Maybe I'm answering my own question here. Let me get to the bottom of this question. So, um, one of the problems I have is that, building my community, building the people that I have around me all the time is not everybody people the well, I don't know how to ask what I'm trying to ask. The rate of recurrence of use, the rate of relapse is so high,
Right.
and I'm building community, and
Right.
at the same time, like I'm struggling
With
to keep my, to just get by one day at a time, and then the person maybe living in the same house or in the same room
sure.
has a recurrence of use, or in the case of some people, you walk in, somebody's hitting a pipe right in front of you.
Right.
How do we deal with that?
In the real experience that I had, it was more often alcohol,
Yeah.
and I would go into my room, which was a shared room, and actually find the open liquor bottle.
Yeah.
And I was experiencing these relapse when I was in the rehab, and everybody being on their own schedule, but depending on when they came in, they were leaving on different schedules, and I would see people when we would have our graduation for somebody, and I'd say, "He's got it. She's gonna kill it.
Yeah.
These people have accomplished this. They've got it." And attached to the rehab center is the detox center,
Yeah.
which we're not really supposed to know anything about who's over there, but we could see a little something through the kitchen when we worked in there sometimes. And I was seeing those same people that I believed had it,
Coming
that were
back.
going to do good. They were back in detox.
Yeah.
So the relapse rate then was like 12, 1 in 12 would make it through that first year, 2 years.
Yeah.
And it got so bad that I remember staff coming to us and talking about, you need to take this more serious as a group. And there was after you graduate out, you have the opportunity to come back for another 26 weeks, once a week. A group of people that got about the same time within 3 or 4 weeks till they have a full group, and every Wednesday evening we would meet. That core group of about a dozen people that I was in on the graduate class, all but one of us, as far as I know, are still clean.
Yeah.
Unbelievable after what they had gone through. But we witnessed that, and I think we learned from it. And
All but one.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was amazing. Now some of them I haven't been in touch with in some time, but it stayed strong, real strong. Um, I struggle with here when I do the meeting that I do, seeing people relapse so much. It does have an effect on me emotionally,
Yeah.
right? I don't worry so much about me going back out, but I do struggle with um, the numbers have changed so much. They've almost doubled since I was in
Yeah.
rehab. Almost doubled. And I walk into any meeting. I walk into any meeting and I'll tell everybody I'll talk of the number and I'll say, by the way, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm the one.
Okay.
I'm the one.
Okay.
And then I will explain that if everybody in the meeting doesn't have that feeling,
Yeah.
doesn't feel the same way about themselves, then they're probably not the one.
Okay. Okay. I like
Conviction, absolute
Yeah.
conviction, creating that absolute conviction.
Well, so how does that relate? So you and I, we both work programs that
Mhm.
that are really defined as a one day at a time or just for today
Mhm.
program. And of course, one of the things I love about this program, 12 steps for me, is that I can restart my day at any
Absolutely.
time. I
Absolutely.
love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that conviction, I'm the one, and that one day at a time, to me, now see, this is my naive little person. Maybe I need to think about this. But how do we put that together? How do we put that together in a way that recognizes, or maybe how do I put it together? Because I'd like to have that conviction.
Um, Mine just comes from the absolute fact that I believe if I were to ever use again, it would be the end of me almost immediately.
Yeah.
Some of that there's a negative in that. Um, but getting clean when I did, I was 55 years old when I got clean,
Yeah.
right? So, and I didn't want to live anymore. I was set, I was done and did not want to live anymore. I mean, I survived through Christmas, barely, trying to get into a bed that was available. I struggled for months to get a bed in the rehab.
Wow.
It took a lot just to get in, and just the the feeling that at any given time while I was in there, that I could be thrown out or I could walk out of the door anytime I wanted to. And I remember the director one day, I was still, I was only a couple weeks in, did 10 days in detox, then went over for a couple weeks. And my mind wasn't there yet. I was still talking um, in a foolish way. I was still expressing, like when we were out smoking, I was talking to some people. I said, I'm going to give this a try for a little bit, but really, I think I'm going to end up right back where I was and I'm going to take myself out. A word got back to staff. And the director, an old biker named Dave, happened to catch me. I think I was set up. I was sent to the med room to get my meds. And Dave was sitting there, and Dave didn't even look at me, just sitting there. And I remember he didn't, he just, I hear you've been talking out the side of your neck. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yes, sir. That changed everything. That simple moment of somebody giving me a good, honest word of what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And he reminded me then, I've got a list of people that want your bed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people waiting for that bed. And if you don't want this, get out of my building.
Yeah.
He was cold. He was right.
Yeah.
And he was honest. And it worked for me. Not saying it would work for everybody.
Mm.
You know, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
That being in there with all those different age groups and what I considered a bunch of disrespectful females that, I felt like I was so much older than most of them, and I didn't
I can
act
relate.
that way. And well, the fact is, I had done just as much or worse in my day. Here again, I hadn't gotten past being judgmental and opinionated to the degree that it was not healthy. I've always struggled with that.
Being opinionated.
Sure, I still do. I still do.
How about the
Right.
judgmental part?
I've gotten much better about
Mm.
that. I mean, I catch myself and I remind myself and I try to balance that, be respectful.
Yeah.
It's not my place to judge. It isn't. Now, I can have an opinion without judging, right?
All right.
I think that when you act that way, you are putting yourself in a negative light. You are reducing your opportunity. You're not being respectful to yourself or to somebody else. So that's an opinion.
Okay, wait. Can I reducing your opportunity? I'm taking that. Art, you're going to hear me use that.
That's a good one. I like that.
Reducing. I do too. I like that. I
Yeah,
like
I
that a
mean,
lot.
you controlled your destiny to a degree.
Yeah.
So your actions, your thoughts, your words, and your decisions.
Man, I love that. One thing as a recovery coach here, as a peer recovery specialist, and working with the individuals I work with, right? Um, we talk a lot about goals,
Mm-hmm.
and putting goals, and especially when there's a transition from the intensive house into step up house, we put it to paper,
Right.
and then often I'll have conversations a couple weeks later, and I'll be hearing these wild things coming out of a coachee's mouth, and said, and my standard response to that is, how does that fit with your recovery goals?
Mm-hmm.
You know, to the point, actually, Joey, who was in here earlier, he kind of laughs when I say that, but it's one of those for me. It's helpful when people say that to me. How does that
Right.
fit with your goals? Period.
Right.
Recovery goals. All goals are recovery goals in my
Mm-hmm.
day now, and it's helpful to be reminded of
The
that.
reminder.
Yeah,
Yeah, that reminder.
because I struggle with judgment, and I struggle
Mm-hmm.
with my opinions too, and I struggle with um, earlier today. I struggle with the minor inconveniences, the frustrations that come up, and the trying to fix, manage, and control everything around
Mm-hmm.
me,
Absolutely.
and I'm
I can
so
make this happen.
and
I can make it work.
and and if only this happens, then I'll be happy, or if
Right.
just all it takes is this,
Mm-hmm.
and ooh,
Yeah, it's a challenge to that your acceptance,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Expectations,
yeah,
expectations. I've learned, although it's always a struggle, I can't have expectations on people who come in here to try to find their way for whatever reason they come in. When I do my meeting, I expect that you're gonna get something out of it. But I've had to tune back those expectations to all I can do is deliver the message,
yeah,
maybe grab a little piece of the heart or the mind. Um, because I do have a tendency to get passionate. Um, because I believe that. I believe it's necessary.
yeah,
I have expressed the fact that the rehab I went through, that everything you wrote basically, and we had to do a ton of writing. You had to read to the community. You had to share it with the community
oh
in front
wow,
of them and read it out loud. And I was I found out I was a pretty darn good writer. I could take what was in my heart and put it on paper, and then when I read it, there were times when I broke down because it was very emotional, and I had other people listening break down.
Yeah.
So when you feel that, when you see that, that's an accomplishment. It's like a cleansing, and to follow it up with, then you get feedback. Yeah, and then you have to not have that feeling of, well, who are you to say that to me, right? Because they're going to give me their feedback, their opinion of what I wrote and read.
Yeah.
And so it was training. I mean, it was that was training. That was learning how to be open minded and not judgmental, and to listen to other people and what they think, whether it really is. When you go to I'll go this way. When you go to a meeting and people take turns sharing, what percentage of what is said do you really need to keep? I've been to a lot of meetings where there was more cackling than there was recovery.
Mm.
Cackle, cackle, cackle.
Yeah.
And it was irrelevant. Now it's good to share, but make it relevant.
Yeah.
Be relevant. And the young people in recovery, listen to people who have the message of recovery, not the ones that talk about all their daily problems. Listen to that recovery message, because you'll hear it and you will come to feel it. If you're open-minded enough and you feel it. What's the worst part about getting clean? We come out from the shadows, and our numbness is gone, and we get our feelings back.
Right. Right.
And I've used that. That's a two-sided coin. It's wonderful getting your feelings and your emotions back, but damn, it hurts.
Yeah.
It will hurt you to the core. Um, when I came out of rehab, I was an emotional wreck. I couldn't watch TV. Johnny's dog would run across the road and never be found again, and I'd be in tears. I couldn't handle emotional stuff well at all.
Yeah.
And it took a while. 30 days after I got out, um, my little brother, roommate, 20-year-old Brian, uh, had was on his way out, and him and another fellow decided to go out and use, and then come back to the center, and they were immediately noticed. The one fellow ran. Brian was put next door in detox. Um, he became belligerent the next day. His dad came and got him and took him to his Oxford house that he'd already been accepted into. Spent the day with him. Went home. 8 hours later, Brian was dead.
Yeah.
There's a 20-year-old young man that I remember sitting. He was on the next bed over from me one night, and he asked me, "Steve, how do you know when you're done?" I'm 55 years old, talking to a 20-year-old who's overdosed 10 times more than I ever did.
Yeah.
And has had a horrible youth. He experienced some very bad things. And he asked me that question, how do you answer that? That it was tough. And then to lose him like that, because he chose to use. We don't know if he didn't want to live and it was suicide, or if it was just an accident.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever know. His father and I are still friends today. But that was the hardest funeral I've ever done in my life, and I've been at many funerals.
Yeah. How did you answer him? How do you know when you're
I
done?
tried to express to him that it was a personal level answer.
Yeah.
So my answer wouldn't be the same as his. That all I could do is kind of explain to him why I was there, and what it meant to me, what recovery meant to me, and how absolute I had to be about it,
Yeah.
and that I knew what would happen if I went back out. For him as a young man, it was just the only thing I expressed to people, and even in my program, I don't think about it as I'll never use drugs again. For the rest of my life, I just do what I do and don't use drugs.
Yeah.
I don't think about the future of not using. You know, uh, it was tough. That was the toughest funeral I've ever been to. So many people in recovery came, and his father had a setup of a service that was just unbelievable the way he did things. Um, the rejoicing, freeing ourselves. He did put your note in the open casket, and it'll go of something that's troubling you, and it'll go away.
Yeah.
The going away was carrying the casket to the inferno in the back.
Yeah.
And then everybody was outside, a beautiful day like today, and we all had balloons to write on. And he said, "This is freedom. Release things from you and let them go."
Yeah.
You know, his father is very inspirational. Now he's probably close to 40 years sober through Salvation Army was his
Oh, wow.
pathway. So the open pathway, I've come to understand more and more, especially having just trained with the peer recovery specialist training. All the open pathways, different ways to find what works for you. It won't be the same for all of us.
Yeah. And there's even, I was talking to another participant earlier, who works 12 step, NA, and we were talking about, oh, I don't want to go down the
Right.
road of controversy here.
Right.
But what does it mean to be clean in NA essentially? And,
Mhm.
talking about Vivitrol and Suboxone and all these things.
Yeah.
And I, he was asking my opinion of this, and I said, well, my only opinion is that anybody who has an opinion on that who's not a doctor is an asshole. That was and
Mhm.
I say that advisedly because I know I'm stirring up controversy, because
Yeah.
what works for me is not going to work for you.
Look, and that's just it. Um, Geez, I could get really controversial about this. I got to be careful where I go. And it's here again. First of all, it's not a my judgment. I was on Subutex for the 10 days I was in detox, and 2 weeks after when I was in rehab for pain.
Yeah.
And the doctor, that was his decision what we should do. After the 2 weeks, I told him, "Doc, this stuff's not working." "Oh, I knew it wouldn't. We need to raise your dose."
Mm.
But I felt the cloudiness. I was in a fog on a simple 8 milligrams.
Mm.
It, it's one thing to wean yourself off of your drug of choice or whatever when you come into recovery. I'm not a big fan of it beyond that. Haven't experienced it. Um, I knew that if I were to leave there, whether forced to or chose to, I'd get sick.
Yeah.
You will go through sickness. I've helped people detox off of methadone. I've helped people detox off of heroin. It was easier to get people off of heroin.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Some people are told you may need to be on this for life.
Yeah.
I don't know how far I want to go with this.
Well,
Yeah, it really does get controversial from there.
yeah.
But as far as look, if you're being a productive member of society, if you're being part of your family, if you're paying your bills on time, if you're going to work, and okay, so if a doctor's recommending you do this to be able to do all those things, and you do all those things responsibly,
Yeah.
who's to say? Everybody's different in every manner.
Yeah.
Not only do we all look different, act different, but we're all chemically different. So I can speak from my experience. What do you want out of life?
Yeah.
What are you willing to do to get it? To have it, I should say. Um, and who benefits the most from it?
Yeah.
How does it affect your siblings, your children, your parents?
Yeah.
let the fear of what, and this goes back into uh, more into the relapse side. I share, let the fear of what you have left to lose keep you from going back out and changing your clean date. Imagine your parents or your siblings at your funeral. Close your eyes and think about it. Imagine.
Yeah, that's part of that no sugarcoating it thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Put the fear in there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's you have to have some fear. You have to have some reality.
Well, and if we're gonna have fear, why not have these fears? You know,
Hmm.
I because the fears that get me are, you know, stupid. Well, I say stupid fears, but the fear, like the fear of success or even the fear of failure, you know,
Hmm.
which is just like, you know, it's like, okay, paralyzes me and I don't want to try anything, you know, but the fear of going out and going back to that I'm not as see, I told you with the with the lights, I'm not really as articulate as I'd like to be. But that gift of desperation, right? You know, I was told early on that, you know, because I walked in those rooms and I'm like, oh, this God thing, and people gave me some helpful tools
Sure.
to come with that, and now I have a very rich and deep understanding that works for me right now, and I think I have an open mind. It's certainly a willingness that, you know, this understanding is increasing as I grow, and
Right.
I'm so grateful for that. I'm really grateful to have been able to be continuing to make a constant contact with a power greater than myself, and but with that early on, it was really important for me to get out of myself and learn, and that gift of desperation. People say group of drunks or group of drug addicts, you know, as an acronym for God. Gift of desperation really still does really worked for me
Hmm.
early on, and going along with what you said is that, I mean, I remember that just being so done that I just didn't want to exist, and I was too chicken shit to just pull the trigger or kill
Yeah.
myself, you
Yeah.
know, being so done that I just couldn't reach out to my family, who's I have very loving and supportive family, you know,
Hmm.
who aren't. I joke about my mom being enabling. She really she wasn't. I you know she did sometimes, but I think she grew to be more enabling because I don't know. It doesn't. That's another story.
You
But
became a better manipulator.
I did. You know what? That's I did.
I recognize that. A better manipulator.
Probably yeah. Yeah.
We do perfect certain skills in active addiction.
You know, I found the guilt triggers and I just kept going with them. And
How far can you stretch the truth? How far can
yeah,
you carry something before you've really crossed the line?
and I just don't want to do that,
Yeah.
you know. And so that gift of desperation for me is looking at that and saying, no, I don't want to be that. And if I do this, which are the drugs and the alcohol,
Hmm.
there's a really good chance, very good chance that
Hmm.
there's not even a chance that I'm gonna be that, and I just
Yeah.
don't want to. I just have too much love in my heart for the people around me, you know, who have supported me for a long time, and I I would love to say that I'm going to do that for the rest of my life, but I get up and make a choice. You know,
Right.
resentments get to me, you know, anger gets to
Sure.
me, sarcasm, all the little
It
annoyances of
doesn't take
life.
much.
It
Right.
no, it doesn't.
Right.
And it scares me, man. It's why I gotta have people, you know, like Art in my corner who calms me down a lot. You know,
Right.
people in my corner be like, yo, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. It's like, Nathan, how does this fit with your recovery goals?
Right.
Gosh darn it, you use my own darn words with me,
Hmm.
you know?
What do you help? What do you accomplish when you let negativity in or let somebody else affect your feelings? What do you accomplish by allowing
I give up my power.
others to affect you? I've
Yeah.
tried to, you know, before in active addiction, my life was so up and down, flat, up, down, flat. You know, it was so unpredictable and so crazy. And now it's very active, very busy, but I do it in a low key way. I try to, I have a little, try to keep it like a little calm ocean.
Mm,
I try not to let people get me bent out of shape.
yeah.
I take the reality of what effect does it really have to have on me? What's going on around me? So finding out, I had wonderful news. I can't even get into it right now. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have started this. On Saturday, I got some wonderful news
Yeah.
about Christmas already, and then from there, This morning getting a call that a good friend of mine from grade school had passed, and he never got clean.
Yeah.
And how do you, I don't know that I really let either one of them escalate or deflate me enough to notice.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an even keel, take it as it comes and process it, um, deal with it, and keep moving forward. Um, go back to the change I must or die I will aspect of this.
Wait, say that again.
Change I must or die I will.
Change I must or die I will.
So
Okay.
in the beginning of recovery, the changes were large.
Yeah.
Large changes, not only quitting using drugs, but changing, which I questioned tremendously in rehab. Why do I have to change everything? I'm not a bad person. I've got a good heart. But the more I've been in recovery, especially after the first couple of years of being clean and being in recovery and not acting in the best interest of society in some ways, or in my own world, I continued to do certain things that were truly not proper to be in a program. I didn't use,
Right.
but I was doing other things that you could call them ethically wrong. You could call them morally wrong. Absolutely.
You just weren't living clean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I was going to meetings.
Yeah.
I had sponsors, and that's plural. Which I figured that one out. But anyway, the change. We didn't, as it says in our readings, we don't become addicts overnight or all at once. It's done over a period of time. My period of time was over 40 years.
Yeah.
Over 40 years. And so it took a while. But what I find now, the change is still there. I'm still changing, but it's much finer tuned now.
Yeah.
Right. So once I quit doing this and quit doing that and started acting this way and that way, was able to become more and more honest, more and more willing. Um, and you get to where you're fine tuning your brain. The change really becomes so internal. My mindset.
Yeah.
How do I look at a beautiful woman with a certain attire in public? And I've struggled with that, as my wife reminds me. She doesn't laugh. Oh my God! And she's
Is
right.
she in recovery?
And no.
Oh.
I believe everybody should be in recovery.
Well,
I believe everybody in the world could use a 12-step program.
Amen to that.
Because it's not because there's good things in the 12-step program about life, but when the trick now is, wow, that's beautiful. Some lucky man's wife, some child's mother, somebody's daughter, and keep my thoughts simple and clean like that.
Yeah.
I can't help with my ICs, but I can have a respectful thought about it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of change.
That's growth.
That's a lot of change.
I have a friend of mine also in the fellowship. She talked about, okay, that's a thought, and she talked of it as a leaf falling on a running stream, and I come approaching it, I think, from a very Zen place, I guess. But I like that. I still I go back to that visual.
Sure.
And I can hear her telling that. It's like, that's a thought. Okay. I don't have to do anything with that thought.
Right. That's right.
Can't control the thought.
What you hear and what you see, you can't control.
Yeah. I like that.
If it's there, it's there.
Yeah.
That'll take me to something I like for early recovery for people. Putting pen to paper. You mentioned that earlier about the goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Early recovery, if you can get in the habit of putting pen to paper, it makes it real. I can have a conversation all day long, but if I write it down, it becomes real.
Yeah.
When I was first in detox, they gave me a pamphlet to fill out so they could do a evaluation of me
Yeah.
to think about where I should go from there. I was brutally honest, and it took a while. And the more I wrote in that pamphlet, the more I wrote on it, the more it affected me. And we're talking
Yeah.
about I was 3 or 4 days into detox, um, but I was thorough and honest with it. And then I had to go in a room and explain it to a young lady who I didn't know, who was college educated, was not a, she was not an
Ooh,
addict.
yeah.
And I broke down
Yeah.
because she's asking me questions about what I wrote. And the more what I put on paper, where I put pen to paper, was coming back at me real. It was real. And she's asking me to explain and elaborate. I had to leave the room 3 times in an hour
Oh,
because
wow.
I couldn't speak. I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
If you can't have that kind of an emotion in your detox, early rehab, if you can't bring up emotions like that, maybe you need to try a little harder.
Yeah.
Because if all you do is occupy space and go to meetings,
Yeah.
you might not be the one,
Yeah.
right? I just, from my experience, I believe that there's a cleansing, there's a change that has to come from within where you truly, what do they call that moment of clarity? But it's more of a, it's almost, there's a word for it in spiritual thinking. But
An awakening.
there you go.
Oh, yeah.
That awakening.
There he is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where, when you get to that point where you have put yourself out there to that point where it comes back to you
Yeah.
in a real way that goes straight through your heart.
Yeah.
Because once you get your heart in the game and you get your brain to start following it, a willingness, it's just, it's simple.
Yeah.
My life is, as much as I've got going on, and I've got a tremendous platter of things going on in my life, I can't even keep up. But I can do it calm, and I
Yeah.
can do it positive, and I can have faith that all I have to do is maintain certain things to let it keep happening.
Yeah.
To let it keep happening.
Yeah.
I finished my Uber work Sunday morning at 6 a.m. At 6:15, I was on the bike. We went and did an honor guard. I came home and mowed the yard, and I keep flowing,
Yeah.
and I keep that positive thought. And when negativity tries to come in, I try to find a way to either turn it positive
Yeah.
or leave it, let it go,
That's good.
right? Because negativity will only breed and become more intense. So I don't have time for drama. I don't have time for negativity. I've got to keep my simple, old,
Like,
old school
yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
All this new wave stuff, all this changing of the guard everywhere to these complicated phones and computers. And hey, here I am sitting in a podcast. And there's people out there saying, "Is that really Steve?"
Well, Steve, we got a couple more minutes, but I do want to, I'll piggyback off what you just said. This, this sort of, it began right before COVID started, but
Perfect timing.
and it was perfect timing because we really didn't know what was going to happen with this, and or what we it's just a platform, just another platform to put out every once in a while, do a thing. And when COVID hit, you know, out of necessity, was born this project that we were able to continue, to put out that message and grab people from all kinds of people have been through this show,
Right.
and been able to talk, and from literally somebody walking in the door hasn't even signed papers yet. I'm like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Right.
just getting back, and somebody I knew, but
Right.
you're just getting back to recovery. You haven't even detoxed. Come on, let's go, let's
Right.
talk.
Right.
To
Real. It's real.
Yeah,
It's real.
and been able to keep getting that message out, and I think it's important that the open-mindedness, the willingness, the honesty comes in, and we get to do these things. And I really love the balance of keeping it real, not sugarcoating shit.
Right.
Because I know me, I tend to be a sugarcoater. And then what happens is, Art will ask me a question, and my first response is, "Wow, this," and I start to blame and say the F word, and I just kind of look at him. And what I love about this guy, I keep talking about you like you're not even here, but what I love about Art, or people here in this building, not just Art, but people in general, when I start to do that, I immediately start to see myself in the facial reaction. I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to be that guy. That anger, that resentment, and that nastiness. It's like, you know what? I really like. I get to see myself through other people today. I get to actually see myself through other
Right.
people, and not just look through people or look at, this is what I'm giving you, and that's it. And you know uh, that rawness, that putting it, for me, there's a realness to me. I don't know what the hell I'm saying, Steve. I think, Steve, that I love that we have these opportunities to have these conversations all day long with all different people who approach recovery in different ways, who are living, acceptable, responsible, productive members of society,
Right.
of society, which I
Starting to enjoy life again
started to
and
enjoy
have
life.
fun
Yeah,
and
I didn't freaking get clean to be
children and
miserable, man.
right.
I didn't get.
And I didn't get clean to go to meetings either.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right.
But everybody needs what everybody needs.
Yeah,
You figure it out as you go.
yeah,
If this isn't working for you, be open minded and kind of wander. Just stay on a path that's recovery and find what works for you.
yeah.
You know, I remember the first time I went into the healing place. I walked in, took off my leathers, and hung them on the chair, and I just looked up and said, "I'm Steve, and you're all gonna effing die." And they all looked at me like, "Huh?"
Ooh,
But then I spent the next hour relating to that.
yeah.
We're all gonna
We're all
die.
gonna
That's
die.
inevitable. We're all
Right.
gonna die.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
got your attention. Now, while we're on the subject, let's talk about how we're gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to die with people saying that dude helped a lot of people on the way out.
I like
He
that.
carried the message. He got his feelings back.
Yeah.
I got to make a call the other day, and I got feelings of emotion just from a conversation with somebody that remembered me from a meeting, and it overwhelmed me. It
Yeah.
almost brought tears to my eyes.
Mm,
I didn't even know who I was talking to,
yeah.
but the things he said for he remembered for me.
Yeah.
We do make a difference.
Yeah. And we don't always know where and when,
That's
and
right.
and that's okay.
It is.
That's okay. My my
Faith.
my grandmother, who's going to be 97 in
Oh,
July.
wow.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
Is she
And
opinionated?
she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's very opinionated, but she's also. Oh, it's another story for another time because we're short on time. But I want to. The one thing she shared with me, not this past. I just saw her last weekend. A couple months ago, she shared with me. Her name is Marge, and
Okay.
she's like, do I want to be the person that when I walk by, people say, "There goes that Marge," or do I want to be the person that when I walk by, people say, "There goes that Marge,"
Right.
and you hear the difference in that, and she is always I'm sure somebody doesn't like her somewhere. She's
Well,
not a
that's
people pleaser.
inevitable, right?
Yeah. But she's the person I'm like, I want to be near this person. She's got something figured out. And
Mm-hmm.
she's working with love, she's working with compassion and kindness, and she's not diminishing herself to do that.
Right.
And I think that's a lesson for me. It is a lesson for me. I don't think it is. It is a lesson for me.
When you can do it without being just a people pleaser.
Yes.
When you can do it from the
Yeah.
heart and be real and let
Yeah.
it happen.
And boundaries.
That's right.
Are you one? I like that. Are
Yeah.
you the one? I
Are
think
you the
that's
one? If you don't believe you're the one, maybe you need to rethink your thinking.
Steve, do you have any last thoughts before we close out?
If you're on the road to recovery, stay there. Hang around with people that have been around and have
Yeah.
faith.
Appreciate
I
that.
believe in it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Art, my friend, thank you very much. I apologize for not seeing the message you put up there earlier.
Uh-oh.
Well, I forgot to put a commercial break in.
Uh-oh.
That's all
No,
right.
that's all right.
Well, no,
It was a good show.
yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
You're
you
doing
for
a great
having
job.
me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for your service too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We will see. Thank you, Art. Thanks for everything you do. We will see you all Thursday. What do we got Thursday? Is there anything up there? Oh, I know we got a show. No, maybe we don't. It's not written up there? Well, it's all right. We'll figure it out. Art. Hey, listen, tune in. We'll have a surprise for you on Thursday at 2:00. Hey, we're struggling to get organized every year, but if we ever do, there's probably a problem. So listen, love y'all. Thank you for being here today with us and for joining us. Stay in the herd.